Alright, enough of that shit. Wow, what the fuck was that? Alright, enough of the YouTube, not YouTube, but enough of the Instagram. Yo, what up? Mr. Campbell, how are you doing this afternoon? I have a frozen fruity drink here, and it's tasting delicious. And I have some herbal essence, which are also delicious. No, I don't have a... Fuck me. How you been doing, bro? Long time no see. Alright, I need to go run and grab one thing. Yeah, tell me about it, bro. Tell me about it. No, literally, tell me about it. What happened this weekend? Go ahead, start typing. I'll be right back. Wow, damn, bro. What did the doctor say? My homie just had his appendix removed, like literally this past weekend. I think he got out the hospital on Friday. And I have like some kidney issues too. I had to go see a urologist about 2 years ago. And I know it's just a lot of getting old. Most of the shit comes with just being old or getting older. And so yeah, I definitely get it. Gotta have good kidneys, man. Your kidneys are your or your filters for your body, man. Your kidneys filter out all the bad shit. Get all the waste out. Kidneys ain't working right. Something going on. Stay with a fucking infection. I feel you. I say when I was having issues, I didn't know what it was, and then I don't know. My doctors, it was like I never really got a conclusive answer after all the tests and everything that were ran. Like I never really got a definitive answer of like what's the diagnosis. They just gave me a bunch of maybes, and it could have been. Hmm. I feel you, bro. Damn right. I'm a fighter too. Here lately, I turned 40 years old this year, and I really been trying to implement like lifestyle changes, and I think I need to go a little bit more hardcore next year with my sugar intake. I really need to cut back on a lot of sugars. I eat too many sweets and junk food. I need to drink more water. I exercise pretty regularly, but I definitely need more fruits and vegetables in my diet, more water, and less sugar. And if I can stay off the cigarettes. And I'm not, I feel like I'm addicted to cigarettes, but people tell me I'm not because, like, I'm not like a real smoker. Yeah, 41, that's right. Like, some people smoke a pack of cigarettes in a day or 2 days. Me, it takes me like a week to smoke a pack of cigarettes. It literally takes me a week to smoke a pack of cigarettes, and then on top of that, like, I don't even smoke a whole cigarette. Sometimes I smoke half or a little more than half, but like most people smoke that shit down to the fucking butt and then flick it. Like I never smoke cigarettes like that. So it takes me a week to smoke a pack, and then on average, I literally only smoke half a pack of cigarettes because I don't smoke a, a whole cigarette. It's rare that I smoke a whole fucking cigarette. So it's like I'm smoking a half a pack of cigarettes every week, which don't seem bad, but if I can just, that's why my friends like, bro, you barely fucking smoke. You just be playing with that shit. Why don't you just fucking quit? And then I go months without smoking cigarettes, yo. I go 2, 3 months with no cigarettes, no problem. And then like, I don't know, it'd be like some stressful ass shit hit me, and it's like, fuck, I need some nicotine. 41 years of a clean life, but you should have a lot more life left in you then. 'Cause I know all the drinking and smoking, that shit chisel away at the years, slowly but surely. That shit take time off your life. I ain't gonna lie, I smoke and drink every day. I might not drink every day. I ain't gonna lie about that. I don't drink every day. I don't know. My girl try to make me drink every day. It's like she don't mind drinking every fucking day. You want to drink? You want to drink? And some days I'd be like, nah, I don't. No, I don't want to drink. I don't feel like drinking today. But I don't know. This year, I think it may be because of the girl I'm dating, but my my weed intake went up and my alcohol intake went up. 'Cause she liked to smoke and drink all the fucking time, and we're always together. So that kind of increased my habits a little bit. But I definitely need to knock that shit down a tone. You made a promise spiritually at 18. That's pretty wild, bro. As a young man to go ahead and make the determination to live a sober life, that's pretty fucking dope, yo. That's pretty dope. I like it. But then on the other hand, mind altering substances have been known to elevate one's consciousness. Oh no, it ain't no watch out. It was dead serious, yo. And then she used to smoke these backwoods cigars, and they're just like the harshest thing ever, yo. And then she had me smoking backwoods because that's all she would smoke. And she'd roll up a cigar, and then I'll smoke that shit with her, and I'll cough my fucking lungs out. And I had to tell her like, yo, I'm not smoking them shits with you no more. Like the peer pressure. I can't have this type of peer pressure on my lungs. But yeah, man. Some things can expand your consciousness and just make you uh, relaxed enough. It sets your mind at ease enough where your thoughts do travel and do wander, and you think about different things, or you think about the same things in a way that you never thought about them before. You know? Yeah, I'm working on some new art right now. Um, so I just finished one dope painting, yo. I absolutely love the painting that I just finished, and I cannot wait to show it in a gallery. Um, when I'm working on some still lifes, normally I paint portraits or images of people, but uh, I have several still lifes under my belt that I've already done, but I've done like normal, stereotypical still lifes of flowers and vases and teapots and teacups and stuff like that, fruit and shit like that. And those still lifes are beautiful just to see an arrangement of. Appreciate it, bro. I always wanted to like reimagine a still life, and I always thought about it like, would people even accept this as a still life, because it's not fruit and silver bowls and all this other stuff. And so I had the idea for years, and I just never did it. And then recently, another artist friend of mine was like, "Yo, try. It would be dope if you did a still life with like some other stuff, like some PlayStation stuff or something." And I'm like, you know what? I've already had the idea, and since you vocalized that, I think it's time for me to bring these still lifes out of my mind and put them down on canvas. So this is the one I'm working on now. And this is called Game Time, because I'm getting ready to play some games. And then I might have to update Game Time because this is the PlayStation 4 controller, and now I have the PS5. So I might have to do like some PS5 stuff, yo. I already have I had to incorporate the PlayStation VR headset in this piece. And you can see the PlayStation controller there as well. So always trying to add, like, really put myself into my art, because I am a big gamer. I love video games. And so that was like one of the first pieces, maybe the only piece where I actually put like gaming equipment in the painting itself. And so this is the second time with this still life where there's actual video games in here. And chose these games right here specifically. Watch Dogs is a pretty good series. It's all about the little man trying to take down the big corporations, you know, maintain our personal privacy and security. So Watch Dogs is in there, and what do I do when I play games? I probably roll a little doobie, hit the doobie a couple times, you know. So this is just like literally. You see what I'm saying? This is me, yo. And I'm really pushing like more images of marijuana in my art. I'm very pro marijuana, uh, and I do believe that marijuana prohibition will end within my lifetime. There's over a dozen states now that have completely legalized marijuana. There's several more states that have decriminalized marijuana, and even more states that allow marijuana for medicinal or medical purposes. So the taboo behind the plant is dying. The science is increasing, and more people are accepting of the fact that a large portion of the population indulges in the plant itself. So just trying to push that narrative because the Grand Theft Auto series. A lot of people say that like my my Dank series kind of reminded them of like GTA art, and I was going for like stylized poses here. This pose is very stylized. This pose is more natural, a neutral pose, but this pose here is very stylized, like very animated. You can see like the motion and energy in it. You can kind of see like the motion in this piece, but still a very stylized pose. Once again, kind of like the GTA series. But I'm working on some digital art nowadays using Procreate, and my style is a little more cartoony. Um, when it comes to the digital art, and I like that. You know, that's I started off drawing like comic books and stuff like that. So, but the piece I just finished, this beauty. Once again, trying to do the still life in a different way. So I call this one movie night. I try. You know? I definitely try. Jose Cuervo. Well, R. Kelly going to jail. R. Kelly found completely guilty as hell in sex trafficking trial. I'm trying to see some other news. Like, what's popping in the news right now? Anything interesting? And what are these? These are these are some Eddie Bauer socks. Eddie Bauer. They good. They're almost as good as Timberland socks. Not as good, but almost as good, yo. And I got them because they look just like my Timberland socks, though. But yeah, the Eddie Bauers, these are fucking nice, comfortable. They're fucking long as shit. They're thick, but not too thick. You know what I'm saying? They're fall socks. You know what I'm saying? Weather start dropping outside a little bit, pull on your fall socks. Now my Timberland socks, I say them shits for the wintertime. Yo, the Timberland socks, husky as fuck, yo. Yo, Mike, catch you around, bro. Yeah, the Timberland socks are the shit. Oh, this is what I was just listening to. Something about marijuana. Russell Brand was saying that. Okay, the name of this clip is everyone getting high? And he starts out. He's a funny dude to begin with, but he talks about some companies are dropping their mandatory drug screen. Yeah, so few people are still back to work. One, because of that PPP loan bullshit and uh, that extra extension, extra money on your unemployment, and then COVID and Delta, and like so a lot of people still really haven't went back to work for the most part of this pandemic thing, and so companies are trying to pay more money. I see McDonald's; they already a lot of McDonald's are now paying like $14, $15 an hour, and so now they're saying that a lot of companies are also dropping mandatory drug screenings to hopefully, you know, entice more people to apply for the jobs. It's like, look, man, we just need employees. You smoke weed, man. I don't even care no more. I ain't even gonna test you for that shit, bro. You want to work or not? Just as long as you ain't high on the job, can you do the job without fucking shit up or fucking yourself up? That's all. That's all I need you to do, man. For 8 hours. When you go home, if you drink beer, or liquor, or smoke your cigarettes, or smoke your weed, or do your coke, or whatever you do, I don't give a fuck about none of that shit, man. Do that shit at home. As long as you ain't high on the clock, man. I ain't gonna drug test nobody. You know what I'm saying?
The global worker shortage. People can't get workers to do jobs. Is it because they're not paying them enough? Is it because they're making ridiculous demands of those workers? Well, not in some cases, because some companies are dropping drug tests for workers simply to make it easier to get workers. Sort of accepting you don't have to be on drugs to work here, but it helps. Hello you, welcome to the news. In the midst of a global labour shortage, employers around the world are doing away with drug tests in a desperate bid to attract more job applicants, fill more roles and retain more workers. That's pretty funny, isn't it? Alright, we need workers, you're allowed to take drugs now. A survey conducted by staffing firm Manpower Group, released this week, indicated that employers worldwide were eliminating job screenings or drug tests as an incentive to attract and retain in-demand talent. Are you on drugs? Yeah. Would you like a job?
No, not really.
Well, look, you can still take the drugs.
Okay then.
Could you be in at noon?
No.
Well, just try your best. That equates to employers from 40 companies who are willing to turn a blind eye to workers' recreational drug use if it means filling vacant positions. On one hand, I think, if people are recreationally using drugs, that's their business, no one else's business. It should be their right, their body, their life, their right to do whatever drugs they want. But what worries me about it is that people are taking drugs because they're miserable and unhappy, and because life's become futile and empty. And because instead of adjusting the system to create roles and lives that are more reflective of who we really are spiritually, it's like, just let them take drugs so they can deaden the feeling while they do jobs that they hate. I know there'll be loads of you doing this that do jobs that you're just not into, where you feel detached and that the best thing in your life is some peak experience achieved through a chemical or a screen. That's the macro view, you know, when we're doing these chats, when I'm doing these videos. I'm thinking, there's something better. There's something better for all of us. The aim can't be to live in relative poverty and spiritual penury, drugging yourself through the day before just sort of tipping over into an open casket. Last month, a report by Deloitte noted that this global talent shortage, when did we start? That's really confusing, is coinciding with elevated unemployment rates in places like the US, UK, Canada and Australia as economies start to reopen following COVID-19 lockdowns. Not only are more individuals finding themselves out of work, but employers are also experiencing difficulty in attracting and hiring qualified candidates. Screening measures like drug tests, which threaten to weed out candidates from an already small talent pool, only complicate things further. I've spoken to friends of mine that reason this and that work in hospitality and stuff, and they can't find people to wait, and they can't find people to be busboys. And I suppose I'll say here what I said to them: why don't you pay people more money? And they said, well, because the economic model of our business cannot sustain that. And then I thought, wow, it shows you how fragile these things are, and that they are utterly dependent on what you might call underpaid labour, because I think to a degree it's a migrant crisis also. Certainly in the UK, many people think it's as a result of Brexit and people like having been at home furloughed for ages and thinking, I ain't doing that no more. And in the US, I don't know what the conditions are in your country if you are an American, but there's a kind of underlying despair and an unwillingness to hurl your life into some low-paid work for no real reason. I think there's this over-reliance on the idea of the individual. Well, if you've got a lot of mojo, you'll be able to get a job as a waiter and you work your way up to the top, and you'll start your own restaurant, you'll become a billionaire. It's the American dream. Well, increasingly these days, the game is so rigged, feels so tied up that that dream, it seems harder to go to sleep and into that dream than it once was. Some of the world's biggest companies have already cottoned onto this and have started to adapt their hiring protocols accordingly. In June, Amazon, the second biggest global employer, based out of the US, announced it would no longer test for marijuana in its pre-employment drug testing for jobs not regulated by the US Department of Transportation. This was a substantial change that would allow the company to move closer to its long-term vision of becoming Earth's best employer, according to Dave Clark, Amazon's CEO of Worldwide Consumer. Do you know what will make us Earth's best employer? What? Everyone's stoned? They won't notice how little we're paying. Yeah, that'll work. In the past, like many employers, we've disqualified people from working at Amazon if they tested positive for marijuana use, Clark said in the announcement. However, given where state laws are moving across the US, we've changed course. That's interesting though, isn't it? Because illegal, but do you still feel like at work? Like, I mean, I was a drug addict, and there was a phase of that where my primary drug of choice was cannabis. It didn't help work, unless that work was imagining things, which I was quite good at. But it was also not good for driving, which I didn't learn to do for 15 years. Selling photocopiers, working, all of them things, working in bars, restaurants, it was Not good for that. Amazon has also advised delivery partners, contractors who own and operate the delivery vans emblazoned with the Amazon logo. Clever. We don't do the vans. We don't have to do with them guys. They're out there, they do what they like. To clearly advertise people who try and drive a position that they don't test for cannabis use. That's to clearly advertise that. Come and work as an Amazon driver. We do not test for cannabis use. We're not saying take cannabis, but we're saying if you do, we won't know. Claiming that the move could increase applications by 400%. This is the potted market they're trying to get to. What they called it earlier, the talent pool. And now it's just the stoner pond. The company claimed that screening for marijuana cuts the prospective worker pool by up to 30%. Look, the sad truth behind this is so many people are dissatisfied and unhappy that their primary means for getting through life is to medicate themselves through the use of drugs. I know a little bit about addiction, and most people that use drugs to a chronic degree are using it as a sort of salve for some kind of misery, disconnection or despair. So even though I'm laughing about this because bits of it seem kind of funny, at the heart of it, this is very sad because there are two truths that are revealed by this. One, the reality of our economic system cannot accommodate workers, it can't afford them, it's sort of collapsing, so it's balanced on an illusion, built on a fallacy anyway. And two, so many people are unhappy in the world that their primary means for survival is self-medication. They're holding themselves together through drug use, even if you see sort of cannabis as kind of a friendly drug, and certainly compared to some of the drugs I've taken, it is. But the reality remains the same. People are very unhappy and we're living in an illusion. Two conclusions. An employer drug testing survey released last year by Current Consulting Group found that 36% of poll respondents who were planning to remove marijuana from their testing panel were doing so because they were experiencing delays and cannot fill positions due to high marijuana positives. Wow, everyone's stoned. Bob Dylan was ahead of the curve. Everybody did just get stoned and now they can't drive an Amazon. Even in countries where marijuana isn't being decriminalised, though, drug tests have been causing headaches for employers. Marijuana's quite good for healing that. In Western Australia, small businesses across a range of industries report an increased difficulty in filling labour shortages ever since the state government introduced mandatory drug testing policies in November 2020. We've tried many different media outlets, different sort of ads, different angles, word of mouth, not even a phone call, said Steve McKenney, owner of a butchery company. If we put a sign up, we could easily get 40 or 50 applicants. But if the sign says, must submit the drug testing, it's down to 4 or 5. Bloody hell. I wouldn't want to work in a butcher's if I was stoned. It would seem too like, oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, this was a lamb. With talent shortages plateauing at a 15-year high, many employers around the world are deciding that something has to give, and for several thousand of them, that's drug tests. Wow, drug tests are by the by. That's interesting, isn't it? For some of you, what a relief, because now you can, take drugs while you do your job. But for me, the serious things that come out of that story is the fragile capitalist free market economic model with regard to businesses that require low-paid employees can't survive without the illusion of low-paid labour, and a significant number of people are stoned all of the time because life is painful and difficult. It's odd how we misread these signs, how we see it as, oh, we need more migrant labour, or, but when the sort of other conclusions you could draw is people need to be paid more, people need to have a better standard of life. Economics and work shouldn't be at the centre of our existence. We could express ourselves in many different ways, that even things that are formidable and frightening and foreboding now, like the AI revolution, could be marvellous in the right hand. That could lead to a leisure society, that could lead to fairness. But it won't, because it will be centralised, it will be controlled, it will lead to more people losing jobs, it will lead to lower paid workers, it will lead to higher drug use. So I suppose what you have to say is that at the head of this system are a problematic set of beliefs, and unless they change, all of this sort of, the symptoms of it will continue to get worse. If you agree with what I've just said, let me know in the comments below. If you disagree, let me know. Why don't you give this video a little like, cling thumbs up. Why don't you press the subscription bell, become a subscriber to this so you'll get told. And let me know if you're not hearing about it, by the way. Click the notification bell. Let me feel your love. Let me enter into your phone at will, clanging away when you try to get on with your life. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at this one. If anything, it's a little bit better. If you need to meditate now instead of your constant drug use, have a little look at this. Please sign up to my mailing list at russellbrand.com, and if you want deep conversations of this nature, consider subscribing to Under the Skin on Luminary from Apple. But yeah, get on my mailing list at russellbrand.com so we can stay in touch, stay free.
Bogeys on your 16, they need customized car insurance from Liberty Mutual, so they only pay for what they need.
are not getting you a helicopter.
Only pay for what you need. Liberty, 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 liberty.
Billie Eilish, this is another news before we get to the Cuomos and then where is this? Billie Eilish lost 100,000 followers after posting this photo of her in a corset. Do you have the picture there? Overlay it.
We don't have the picture, but we have the quote.
Oh, you have the quote.
We gotta see the
Why did she take down the picture?
I'm not sure. I can check.
Okay, let's see if we grab the picture.
The picture.
Yeah, if we're going to talk about someone's boobs,
we gotta see
show the boobs.
Those boobs.
Right.
Somebody pull us the picture.
That's a good thing. And they have a filter on their computer where they're like, well, I just don't see boobs ever.
And then they spell it BEEWBS.
IEW, yeah. So Eilish called the incident dehumanizing and said that she lost her followers because, quote, entirely because people are scared of big boobs. That goes against everything that I've known about regarding boobs.
Ever?
Especially on Instagram.
Yeah, especially, right, she lost, they're saying it's what, sock accounts?
Well, that's so the investigation revealed that...
there they are.
Yeah, there you go. She said she lost 100,000 followers because of that picture.
Wow, that is weird.
People are scared of big... And by the way, an investigation did reveal that she did lose followers, but 99,999 were they were actually just sock accounts of this man.
The other ones were Finnish in a sock accounts. Well, just look at her though. It really is the opposite of her entire image. It's like, hey, yeah, that girl's been carving pentagrams into her desk. Oh, she's got a nice pair of fat naturals.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But her, of course, is like Ali Sheedy from the Breakfast Club in a prom queen sash.
It just doesn't make sense. Her fans weren't disappointed in her boobs. They were just disappointed they weren't covered in track marks.
You really can't change your likeness when you spend your entire career looking like someone who folds Slipknot shirts at Hot Top, like or rainbow shirts. Like, it's just my thing. I just really like My Chemical Romance. You suck.
Yeah, just like what part of my hair is green and I'm sad.
Yeah, I'm sad.
Yeah, she just looks like a cutter.
Yeah.
And that's what you come to.
And then she came out, I'm Marilyn Monroe now.
Yeah. Yes. By the way, is it pronounced eyelash? Because I've been confused for 2 years.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Antonio Soprano. Precise. Fill up the truck. I want to go to college. I can't get caught dancing.
We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live.
The delay of somewhere between 0 and probably 3 seconds in some of these calls. Jim and I are aware of it. The people behind the scenes are aware of it. There's nothing else we can really do at this point, although we're looking into other options. And we're going to try to be as forgiving and kind as we can, because genuinely we'd like to have good conversations. So if you are a theist, if you're a God believer of some stripe, or if you believe in something supernatural or wooish, you can call the number at the bottom of the screen to get to us, and we will do our best to have a conversation where we discuss whether or not we agree and explain what you believe in more. On that note, we are already taking a call live from India. Here is Ram. How are you, Ram?
I'm doing great. I'm wonderful.
A note here said that you can't prove God, but you can feel him, and wanted to talk about that. So welcome. Please explain.
Thank you. So the last time I called, I was 2 years ago. So I really took your guys' message very seriously, and I became an atheist, and I felt a sense of strength and power within me. The thing that I didn't before. So I was living God for a long time, and but things, life passed, and I got some issues. I got a lot of issues. I became very sad and hopeless during the time period, and very depressed and all those things. 6 months ago, I started to believe in God again, And I've been thinking and just wanted to, discuss what I had thoughts in mind, and so I wanted to discuss a few points with you.
Absolutely. And first of all, I'm really sorry to hear that you found yourself sad and hopeless. I hope that instead of just turning to a God belief, although I'm happy for anything that seems to help people, maybe did you talk to a counselor? Did you reach out to a therapist? Because depression is something that many people deal with.
Yeah, I did talk to a lot of people. It's just that
I didn't ask. Ram, I didn't ask if you talked to a lot of people. I was asking if you talked to an expert, like a mental health expert.
Yes, I did talk to a couple of counselors. I talked to psychiatrists and all those things. So I'll talk about it, and maybe you can give me some points wherein things can be. I can be very glad of that. So
well, I'm not a therapist. I just wanted to make sure that we recommended that. But I'm interested in when you say six months. When you say 6 months ago, I just want to make sure you got help and didn't just go reaching for it. You said 6 months ago you started believing in God again. What convinced you? I mean, because I couldn't just like Jim could either one of us. I could just say, hey, I believe in God now. Something would have to convince me, and so I'm wondering.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really difficult for me to do that. Yeah.
I met someone and they changed my mind, and it was that was it. I met someone and they changed my mind.
Okay, how did they change your mind?
What about it?
How did they change your mind?
So basically, we were talking about science, and they basically said that science cannot explain everything because science looks at things in a very empirical manner and systematic manner. Okay, it looks at systems and the states of it, and it fails to highlight the emergent properties from that model. So whatever model we do predict, so there always seems to some properties come emerging out of it. Things which we didn't predict in the initial system, they just come crashing on us, and we have to make a new model to explain things. Okay.
Wow.
So this has been the problem of science since ever.
Yeah, so first of all, I have a friend, R.M. Ra, who's been on the show before, and he likes to say that science doesn't know everything, but religion doesn't know anything. And so when someone tells you that science can't explain everything, it's true that science has not explained everything yet. I don't know how they reached the conclusion that science can't explain everything or ever, but the fact that there may be something that science doesn't explain doesn't mean that it's real and doesn't mean that religions have an explanation. So what was it that convinced you that a religious explanation was correct?
First of all,
would you just let me finish the question? I know you could hear me. There wasn't a gap in it. I didn't pause at all. I just wanted to get to the question. Please continue.
Okay. So firstly, I'm not arguing for religion. I'm arguing for God. Okay. And secondly, I think there is an inherent, and they also think that there's an inherent flaw, and I can in science to explain certain stuff, and I can explain with an example. Okay. So this example has come up before also. So there's many scientific theories predict multiple universes and levels of existence. Yes, they do.
Some hypotheses do. There are some hypotheses. That's different than a theory.
Some hypotheses. Yes. Some hypotheses they say that this could happen. This is like inherent in the system, and so we can't prove it until we actually travel between them or somehow find a way to bridge the gap between these worlds, and we can't really prove that these things exist, right? And but a lot of these theories, a lot of them, they come to the point of that there are multiple universes, that there are multiple realities and existences, and it just seems so. Everywhere, a lot of people, they do believe in this thing, and they work every day towards proving this thing. In science, scientists do that.
Yes, there are some people, I don't know how many to qualify lots. There are people who accept that there are multiple universes. Yes. So what's your point?
It is that we can't really prove that there are multiple universes.
Yeah, there's no proof. That's why it's a hypothesis, and that's why I corrected you when you used the word theory, because theory is reserved for things that, if they're proven untrue, it would fundamentally change the way we view something in science. It's the highest accolade for truth that science provides. So it's all hypothetical. Yes, it is hypothetical. Some people believe it, some people don't. So what?
Yeah, Ram, the point is that there are scientists who are working to try to explain things, and one of them will come up with some of them come up with a hypothesis, like maybe there are multiple universes, and some other people will say that's a really interesting hypothesis. How can we go about testing it? And then they will work tirelessly. It's not that they believe it's necessarily true; it's that they believe there is benefit to working towards demonstrating that it's true. And the time to believe that there's a multiverse is after that hypothesis is tested and confirmed. That's the way science works. You know what scientists aren't doing? Positing God or supernatural things, because those things aren't testable. So you're comparing apples and oranges, because science, yes, can create a model. Here's what we think could be happening. Let's try and prove it. And they will work to prove it. And then when they can, then it's time to believe it. But science doesn't say, here's what we think's actually happening. We think there's a supernatural being that created the universe. We just can't prove it. That's not what science does. And so if your point is that science doesn't have an explanation for something, therefore I'm reasonably justified in believing in a God, you are in fact 100% completely, undeniably wrong. Because in order to justify in believing in a God, you would need to have evidence for that God. Now you could be reasonable in saying, I think the God hypothesis is a reasonable hypothesis and we should be working on it. The problem is, my now deceased friend Vic Stinger wrote this book, God the Failed Hypothesis, which goes through why God is not a valid, reasonable hypothesis within science, why it hasn't been demonstrated, why it can't be demonstrated. And so you're calling now to say that you were an atheist for a while, you got depressed, somebody convinced you that because science doesn't know everything, maybe you should turn to God. Well, that is a fallacy, man. That's all we're trying to say.
That logic is not the only tool in the world, and there are other tools than logic to lead yourself.
Ram? Mm-hmm. I didn't say anything at all about logic being the only tool in the world. But if you're using a tool and it violates the principles of logic, what reason could you possibly have to think that it's correct? Can you name anything else that's been demonstrated to be the truth violates logic?
Yes, I mean, isn't one thing enough?
Okay, what's the one thing? Name one thing that's been demonstrated to be true that violates logic.
Oh, bad question. Well, there are a lot of logical paradoxes that exist. We don't know where.
No, Ram. I apologize, but I asked for something that is demonstrably true that violates logic, something that nobody has ever been able to demonstrate in history. There are things that seem irrational. There are things that violate our understanding of the universe, and there are things that are paradoxes. But I asked for something that was true, because you believe in a God now, and when people point out to you that you're engaged in logical fallacies, you say, well, there's other ways of knowing than logic. Prove it. Show that you have a way of demonstrating that a God exists, is more reliable than, so that we set aside the logical fallacies in your argument. That's what we're saying.
You're saying that prove logic with logic? Is that what you're trying to say that? Or?
No, and you're not listening, Ram. So I'm going to move on to somebody else, because if we're going to go to all this trouble to point out logical fallacies and then have you say, well, logic isn't the only way of knowing, and then when we ask you to demonstrate some more reliable way of knowing, you're just asking, well, you're saying prove logic with logic? No, you're no longer listening, Ram. You're not thinking about what we're saying at all.
Okay, I'll try it again.
Thank you.
Maybe you have to believe in certain things, and then you have to do it that way.
Well, maybe, are you saying you have to believe in God first? Why would you believe in something first? That is the very definition of how you go about deceiving yourself. I believe something if you have evidence, and then you seek things out that confirm it. That is remembering the hits and avoiding the misses. Now you're engaged in yet another logical fallacy. Do you not care about whether or not your beliefs are true, Rob?
And sometimes, a lot of times in logic also, there are axioms that we think things, for example, we take them for truth, and then we build skills around it. And
Ram, you can do this shit all day long. You are engaged in actively making excuses for why you believe bullshit. Essentially saying, I can't prove it now, but maybe someday I can. And what I'm saying is the time to believe it is after you can actually demonstrate it. Before then, you are engaged in an act of self-deception and logical fallacies. If you actually care, Ram, whether your beliefs are true, then you should care whether or not you can demonstrate them.
Demonstrate them, but I can definitely tell you what are the positives of why you should do it.
Hang on. I'll make sure I'm clear on this. You're saying you can't demonstrate that it's true, but you can demonstrate the positives and the benefits of believing it. Well, I didn't ask about the positives and benefits of believing it. I asked whether or not it's true. There are plenty of things that one could show positive benefits for believing when the belief isn't true. It is demonstrably not true that any given kid can in fact grow up to be anything they want to be. Yet we tell them that because when they believe that, it encourages them to strive towards better things. But it's a lie. It is absolutely a lie that you can grow up to be whatever you want to be. Pointing out a benefit of something is completely irrelevant. I don't care if there's a benefit to it. I want to know if it's true. Because with those benefits also comes baggage, because now you believe something that's not true, and that can harm you.
And I would ask the question, are any of those benefits directly tied to the belief in God, or can they be achieved without the belief in God? So, because I don't know of any benefit of believing in God that I don't have as an atheist, not believing in God.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you stay happy? Like, how do you stay content in the fact that, purpose of life and things like bad things happening to, good people all the time, and cancer happening to children.
Ram?
How do you get that?
That's real simple, Ram. It's real simple. Things happen, right? And we label them good or bad. And sometimes by labeling it bad, then we do in fact make it worse for ourselves. But the fact that things happen doesn't have any effect on whether or not I'm happy over a long period of time. It may affect me in the short period, especially if it's somebody that I care about where the bad things are happening, or the things that we label that are bad are happening. But honestly, I don't see why I should let that get me down, and I don't see how all of a sudden having a God to blame for bad things happening to good people helps me stay happy. How does that work? Because if there's a God and he's supposed to be all good, and he's allowing bad things to happen to good people, how is he a good God? How does that work?
And before you get to answering Jim's question, I want to point out that when you ask, how do you stay happy? How do you deal with all these things? Realizing that the universe doesn't exist for me, isn't here to make me happy. Your entire question here is an implied fallacious argument, because it goes like this. Premise 1, I'm not happy. Premise 2, I'm supposed to be happy. Flawed premise. Maybe you're not supposed to be happy. Maybe you're supposed to be legitimately sad about certain things. Maybe being sad about something is how you begin to learn to take action to prevent those things from happening in the future. If you are just sad about your existence and you decide, hey, I believe in a God, and that makes me happy because this isn't the end of existence and everything else, what you've done is decided to deceive yourself into ignoring the problems and you will never, ever solve them, and you will never work alongside other people to solve them. Life is painful, is hard. Life isn't fair. Life doesn't have any special goal for you. Bad things happen to good people. Bad people get away with things. It is to us to realize that that is the truth so that we work to solve that problem. If we bury our heads in the sand and pretend that everything happens according to God's plan and God understands the shit we don't understand so we don't have to do anything, that leads to the extinction of humanity. It's a blissful extinction where you get to sit around and go, God, I'm the special creature of a loving God. And that way when I die, it's not all over. And all this bad stuff happening can just be fucking ignored. It's absolutely disgusting. I know why people do. I know why it appeals, because it feels good. But I give a shit about the truth and making the world a better place. And I'm not the slightest bit interested in what your unsupported, unrealistic belief in a God. If that makes you happy, cool. I'm sad that you prioritize your happiness over truth.
I agree that doing it to the extent that you're saying it is very, very bad, that you don't look at the pains of life and you just give it up to God and don't fix things. I don't think we should do that at all. But the other way, the atheistic way is also, it's too extreme. It's too extreme because, like, I felt a sense of very, very, very hopelessness. Things can't be fixed. I mean, systems in itself are extremely broken. And
what do you mean things can't be fixed? If you're not going to work on them to fix them, then they're not going to get fixed. If the only thing you do is pray, they're still not going to get fixed because you're not doing anything. So if you want to fix things that are wrong in your community, you need to roll up your sleeves and do the fucking work. You can't just pray.
I know what you mean by saying atheism is too extreme. All I'm saying is that I don't believe there's a God. Nobody should believe there's a God until there's a good reason to do so, until there's sufficient evidence for it. How the fuck can that ever be too extreme?
And get extreme in that, for example, that fate itself, like if we have it's a theistic belief, then we can feel that, okay, it has been done for a reason. Things which are like beyond our control, and I mean, there are certain things that are beyond our control. We can work as hard as we like and we can't fix them.
Yes, that's very, very true. How does believing in God fix that?
How is it remotely extreme to recognize the true facts of reality? What's extreme? Opting for a delusion because you're dissatisfied with the facts of reality. That's extreme.
Yeah, and saying that everything happens for a reason, I mean, it's true, and that reason is usually physics, but saying that things happen because some God wants them to happen doesn't make that God all good, doesn't make anything better. And it's not acknowledging the reality of your situation. It's not saying that this is something I can't change, so I need to stop worrying about it. I need to stop throwing energy at this and go work on things that I can change. Or I need to sit down, if it's important enough, and figure out a way to change it, figure out what I need to do, and then go do those things. Sometimes people say there are things you can't change because, they don't want to go run for Congress, or they don't want to run for city council, they don't want to run for office or do political stuff, and sometimes that's what it takes to change things. If you want to change how the poor are treated, you're going to have to get out and knock on doors and talk to people and change people's minds, and that's a lot of effort, and sometimes that's what they say too. So I don't understand this whole thing of there are things we can't change and therefore God makes it better.
Yeah.
No, that's not the attitude that makes it better. What makes it better is throwing your energy at things you can change or figuring out a way to change it.
I'm genuinely sad, Ron, that you found yourself depressed to the point where you gave up on reality and opted for fantasy. But I'm never, ever, ever going to say that that's the right thing to do, because I care about whether or not something's true. I don't see what's so extreme about being rational.
I don't know. It's less comforting.
Yes, it is less comforting, but that's because you have a fantasy version of what you want reality to be. You are literally, well, all right, not literally because you're using different words. You are essentially saying, reality isn't what I want it to be, so I'm going to believe something different. You are taking the Adam Savage, I reject your reality and substitute my own thing, which is comical, and doing it for real. Why?
Isn't the real purpose of life to, have a satisfying, happy life?
No, Ram. When you say isn't the real purpose of life, you've already made a mistake. There is no real purpose of life. Your life can have whatever purpose you attribute to it. No externally imposed purpose to life. There's no purpose to life. There is no guarantee or external motivation for you to be happy, for you to be healthy, for you to be knowledgeable, for you to be anything. That's the beauty of it. We get to decide what we're doing. Go ahead.
It's the internal motivation, right? Nobody wants pain. Nobody wants to have endless amounts of pain.
Correct, but you're going to have pain whether you decide to believe in a fictional God or not. So why do it?
Have less pain.
No, you won't have less pain. What you're doing is you'll have less reality. If you want to engage in the I give up on reality, so I'm going to believe there's a God so that I have less pain, what's causing you pain, Rum? False expectations that people, including you, have put in your head. You expect life to be fair. You expect life to be happy. You expect life to be this. And when your expectations aren't met, that is saddening. So, your expectations commensurate or comparable to the facts of reality. If my expectations of reality was that I'm going to live to be 300, have $1 billion, be the sexiest man on the planet, never have a moment's misery, I'm going to be sad all of my life because none of that's going to be true. But that doesn't mean that I should go believing in a God who has a plan to make me less miserable. Okay. I got to move on to other callers. Think about it some more. I'm genuinely sorry that you.
Think about it.
Yeah, I'm genuinely sorry that you were sad enough that you just went for a God, but you clearly don't value reason and you don't value evidence. You went with how you feel, and that's the pathway to massive misunderstanding. Just trust in your gut.
I'll think about it. I'll think about it some more.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very well. I have a number of announcements to get out of the way. That's the first caller. We did quite a bit there.
Yeah.
And it's because Ram called a couple of years ago. So it bugs me, and I'm a little sad when I see not everybody can understand all this stuff, and we can do what we can to explain it. But watching the path of Jim comes up with a question that is designed to expose something, a flaw in thinking, and I come up with a question that's designed to expose a flaw in thinking, and they just skate right by it and go, well, science doesn't know everything. Isn't the purpose of life supposed to be about being happy? Who told you that?
Yeah, and happiness is very often a choice. I mean, the Stoics had a philosophy, or one of the Stoic principles is amor fati, love your fate. Love the moment you're in, because honestly, what's being angry and upset going to do? It's not going to do you any good.
Yep.
At all. It shuts the mind down. So does fear, and those are not good places to be. So keep that open mind and keep moving forward and make the choice to be happy every time you wake up or think about it. And there are times you're going to be sad and upset and all these other things, but you try and get through that as quickly as possible to get back to a normal, steady state of being happy.
Yeah. When they ask what makes me happy, lots of things make me happy. Food makes me happy, sex makes me happy, TV shows make me happy, Marvel movies make me happy, good stories make me happy, watching other people smile makes me happy, watching people learn makes me happy. Does that mean I'm happy all the time? Nope, not one bit. I got health issues that don't make me happy, but if I just believe that it's all part of God's plan, then I don't go get treatment for those health issues.
Right, and then you're really not happy because nobody can be happy while they're sick, they're physically or mentally ill and having to deal with all those issues. Chronically ill people tend to have less happy lives. And, anyway, there's a whole bunch of conversations we could have on that topic as to how to help that out. But
let's nail some announcements real quick. First of all, for those of you watching us live on YouTube right now, greatly appreciated. You can, in fact, donate. There's a link down below your chat thing there. You can donate whatever you wish, whatever you're able to. I understand it's difficult times. All of your money goes directly to the Atheist Community of Austin. YouTube and Google don't take any portion of it. It goes to help promote this program and all of the other ACA programs as well. You can also get yourself some Atheist Community of Austin merchandise. The URL for that has changed from several months ago. tiny.cc/merchaca is where you want to go there. You can also become a member on YouTube. If you become a member, not only do you get some, cool little icons you can put next to your name, but you can also get out of slow mode, which is something that we don't just put in there to annoy people, but if you're actually a member of the channel, that's one of the benefits of that. And then there's the Patreon support, patreon.com/theatheistexperience. If you are not interested in that, but you do want to interact with people, there's a number of different ways you do it. We have a couple of unofficial things that we like to support, and that is the Atheist Experience fan group on Facebook. It's AXPFG there under groups. And then there's the Atheist Experience private fan group, which is AXPPFG there as well. And there's the unofficial ACA Discord, where you can go and not only have conversations with people, but there's a lot of folks in there who are willing to offer advice and help, and some arguments as well. But we'll get more down that road just a little bit later. I want to talk to Jordan in Virginia. Thanks so much for waiting. You're on the line with Matt and Jim. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Not too bad.
Doing good.
Yes, I was calling in today. I've been watching different content, debates over atheists and theists, and I've come to enjoy the content. It's just nice to kind of like pick your brain and just try to understand things a little bit better. But for the most part, it's giving me more and more doubts about my faith. And I've followed a little bit of your story, Matt, and it's one I feel like I kind of relate to. I am also have a Christian background. I just recently got out of the military, and I've been having my doubts, and yet it's more or less just giving me frustration with the Bible, but I don't want to let go of my faith. My experience as a Christian in church has been more or less very good, and
so was mine, by the way.
Considered
and so is mine.
Oh. Well, so
I never had a bad experience.
Yep.
I didn't have run-ins with church people. But what eventually became more important to me, whether or not it was true, than whether or not I'd had a bad experience. But also, I can point to lots of people who did have bad experience. There are good and decent people within different religions and outside of it. There are plenty of churches that generally do good things, but that has nothing to do with whether or not the doctrine at the foundation of it is true. It just, one thing doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the other.
Sure, absolutely, I get what you're saying. Well, so what I was curious about is that as I'm getting older, one of the most important things for me, I'd love to be, a dad, father, and from my experience and the examples I've had in my life, it would seem to me that it would be a good idea to raise children and to marry someone and have my foundation, as Christianity in the Bible. And I'm curious from your transition, and you've become an atheist.
I'm wondering why you feel that, when one of the prime examples that I'll go to immediately is we know from scientific study and psychologists, physically beating children a bad thing, and yet the Bible completely advocates for it. Spare the rod, spoil the child. If Christianity involves raising kids with corporal punishment, and we know from science that that's bad. Clearly, that's a problem. How do you resolve that?
Well, I guess as far as beating children, like I've said, I've had my concerns with the Bible, and honestly, I wouldn't really agree with all of it anyway. I mean, I've kind of been more comfortable with using my brain, but even still, I have yet to want to make that transition to atheist. But I don't know. I don't know anything about the science. All I could say in terms of disciplining children physically, it worked on me, and I would.
Whoa! What do you mean?
Whoa! No, it didn't. You now think it's okay to beat kids. You didn't come out okay. You think it's okay to beat kids. That's not okay. You didn't come out okay.
And setting aside what you do or don't know about the science, what is it that you think is essential about Christianity that someone can't raise kids and be a good parent if they're not a Christian? What you're implying?
So that's exactly what I'm calling about, because I'm curious about kind of how you transitioned, and because I know that, or at least from videos I've heard, that you're married. I don't know if you have any kids, but I'm not sure if it's the right way. I feel that it's the right way, and more or less the reason why I would say it's right is just because that's my experience, and that's it's just kind of, I'm biased, and
it doesn't sound like you've thought about this at all. I want to let Jim ask a question, but you're basically saying it looks like you haven't thought about it at all.
Yeah, because you basically, when you raise a kid as a Christian, you're fundamentally telling them that they're broken, and the only way they can ever get unbroken, right? And that's very, very different than saying, yes, sometimes you will screw up, but that doesn't mean you are a screw up, right? And yet Christianity says you're a screw up from the beginning. You're fundamentally broken from ground zero, from days. And that is not a good way to bring up kids. And if you've got a daughter, bringing her up with the Eve story, not a good thing, right? Because Eve is the downfall of humanity and women are bad. That's kind of the message that little girls get. And that's not good either. So in what way do you think it's good to bring them up?
So like I said, it's just more or less my experience. I will say this. I had a friend recently that we had a conversation about religion and God, and he's been married for a few years, and he's got 2 kids, and he seems like he's got a really good marriage, and he's, I would say, a good dad, but that's never been a concern for them. They don't talk about religion at all. So that's, one of the things that I've had that's maybe kind of considered, because I'm pretty much putting myself up to be swayed, but, it's hard to say. It's not like I have evidence or anything. I can just more or less say these people in my life who are Christians raised their family as Christians, and it worked out for them. And, from my experience.
Okay, but by that argument, you should also take a look at every secularist who raised their kids without religion, and it worked out for them. So now, at a minimum, you're in a position where equal footing. But here's the thing. I can point out a dozen things in the Bible that you're going to not agree with. You're probably okay with spanking, even though you shouldn't be based on the science, but the punishment in there is, if a kid mocks his father and mother, the punishment is death. There's nothing about this that is necessary. But if you say what you did a minute ago, which is that you're not going to believe everything in the Bible, then I have a very important question for you. What criteria do you use to determine which parts of the Bible you can ignore without pissing off God?
Oh, as far as so over the last, I'd say, 2 years, and listening to atheist content and arguments, I just feel like there's not enough there to really prove God. But I like the idea of God, and I would say that,
do you accept as true the proposition that there is a God? Do you accept that proposition as true, that a God exists?
I would say yes, but I'm not sure it would be the God of the Bible. But yet,
so then why on earth? No. Here's the thing. You think you're probably convinced there's a God, but you're not necessarily sure if it's the God of the Bible, and yet you're sitting here saying that you want to raise your kids as Christian, despite the fact that you don't seem to know that much about it, and you're fine with, Christian churches evidently teaching your kids that they were born wrong, they were born bad, they were born into sin, that there's something wrong with being gay, lesbian, transgender, that you should beat them when they misbehave, that you should kill them if they violate certain rules. And then you say, well, no, hang on, I don't necessarily believe that. So now you're going to pick and choose. Going to pick and choose from the Bible. Why not pick and choose from everything in life and take the things that are good, that are supported by evidence, that are supported by science, get rid of things that are demonstrably bad? What if there's no reason to think that you were born wrong? Why would you do that? If there's no reason to think there's a hell, why would you let anyone tell your kids that they will burn in hell forever if they don't give in to Jesus?
And if you've been listening to atheist content and you've been listening to XP, then you know there are callers who have been atheists for 20 years and still have nightmares about burning in hell. And we've had...
Teaching kids about hell is child abuse.
Yeah.
Teaching kids the bulk of Christian doctrine is child abuse. Following what the Bible says with how you're supposed to treat your kids is child abuse, and you should be arrested for it.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying. I do recall one video I saw of it, and it was you speaking with someone else, and it mentioned about a little girl. I think her father had passed away, her mother, and she wanted to go to heaven and somehow ended up killing herself. And, those are the kinds of things that I'm afraid of because, like I said, I haven't had a bad experience with Christianity, but other people have.
Yeah, and the bad experience is less relevant than is it true, right? Do you want to bring your kids up in a way that they become more susceptible to the likes of a Joel Osteen or one of the hate preachers out there, or some cults, or do you want to bring them up to think for themselves? You very, very difficult to raise kids to think for themselves, and in a Christian household.
Yeah, the better thing to do is to set aside all this concern about religion, or absolutely set aside the notion that you should pick one religion that you're not even convinced is true to raise your children. You want to know how to raise children? You teach your kids how to think, not what to think. You encourage discovery. You encourage exploration. You encourage empathy. That's how you instill good moral values, not by beating them, not by offering them rewards and punishment, but by teaching them about that their actions have consequences, that they impact the people around them, that we have to share space with people, and how would they feel if somebody did this to them. That's how you teach people. That's how you teach kids empathy and morality. You should focus on all of that. And if, as they grow up, they decide that they want to participate in a religion, then if you've taught them how to think and encourage them to embrace reason and evidence, what have you got to worry about? If there's a God, if the only way to raise kids is through some religion, we already know that's false because we know, I can point you to parents, and you've met parents who are completely secular, who are raising their kids secularly, and who have wonderful families and wonderful kids. As long as that's possible, it would seem to me that it would be a devastating mistake for you to not follow that path. Because if there is a God, and you opt to teach your kids secular values and how to think, and teach them reason and empathy, turns out there's a God, then either that God is the type of God who's willing to accept and reward reason, empathy, or punish reason and empathy. And if the God that can punish reason and empathy, fuck him. Monster.
I get you. So I guess from what you said, in your opinion, it would be more detrimental to try and I guess indoctrinate a child into religion And,
of course, because what if you indoctrinate them in the wrong religion? What if you raise them Jewish and it turns out Christianity is right? What if you raise them as Christian and it turns out the Hindus are right or the Muslims are right? You've indoctrinated your kid into the wrong religion, and you're in a position where you are freely acknowledge you don't know which one is right. How could anyone say, you know what, I think I'm going to indoctrinate my kid into this religion that I'm not convinced is true, and then, oh, well, now that they're convinced because mommy and daddy are supposed to be trustworthy, and they led them to that. What are you even thinking? How could you possibly pick a God for your kid? It's absurd and it's obscene.
Well, I've got a problem with the word indoctrinate, which is to teach a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically. Why in the world would you want your kids or yourself to believe anything uncritically? Doesn't that just sound like a recipe for being hoodwinked at every turn and being easily led astray?
I wonder, could you do both? Could you teach them about the Bible, teach them of Jesus, but not necessarily, encourage them to still ask the hard questions, ask the questions.
Are you going to teach them? Are you teaching them about the Bible? Are you going to teach them about the Bible and the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita and every holy book on the planet? Are you going to do that? No, you're not. So let's not pretend they are. I'm in favor of comparative religions courses where you learn the basics of, but you don't know enough about any of this, and you're definitely not going to be teaching them every world religion.
Right, much better.
You haven't even bothered to teach yourself the world religions. You haven't even bothered yourself the one that you're most closely tied to. I gotta go. I gotta move on, Jordan, because we've got announcements to do. I just think about it and call us back. Rather than trying to continue the discussion, think about that, listen to it again, and feel free to call us back with more questions. But I gotta move on. Out there is going to email and say, "Oh, you were just so hard on that person." No, I wasn't.
Yeah,
I wasn't. We're talking about how people are going to raise children, how they're going to raise the next generation. I don't think you can possibly be, in words and language, too hard on parents. The thing is, Jordan, I think, wants to be the best parent that he can be.
Yeah.
I think almost everybody does, and they don't know what they're doing, and this is why many parents just default opt for religions.
Right.
It's not a solution at all, and it can go horribly wrong, especially if there is a God and you pick the wrong one. But if there's not a God, you're still wasted.
Yeah, just telling somebody they're fundamentally flawed and there's nothing they can do about it is not good for anybody's psyche. And very, very different from, yes, sometimes you will screw up. I mean, those are two very, very different things. You can teach kids how to, correct their actions and to recognize when they've screwed up and to fix what they did and go through all that. But when you're fundamentally broken in some way, which is the concept of virginal sin, there's no fixing that, right? Except the cure that is being offered once they've convinced you you're sick. So none of that's good.
But if you want to get answers and you want to have discussions like that, there's a number of other resources out there, not the least of which is, in addition to the Facebook groups we previously mentioned, there's an atheist versus theist debates group, and you can come there either as a theist or as an atheist and participate in discussions and debates there. For those of you who are watching the Atheist Experience right now, you're probably familiar that earlier in the day there was this other show called Heathen, and I have to say it was awesome. J. Mike and Katie were on there. You should go watch it. There were lots of good discussions. And to the caller who called in to talk Heathen to suggest that the Bible doesn't support the notion of an afterlife by pointing to the passage in Ecclesiastes 9, I think it was. You should also go read Ecclesiastes 4:2, where it says the dead are happier than the living. And then you should also go read what the scholars say, because Ecclesiastes was written by a non-believer, and you don't just pick and choose. They were correct. Patterson's personal interpretation is their personal interpretation. It doesn't even match up. Oh, I found the secret knowledge in the Bible. But in between Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience, The Atheist Community of Austin's flagship program, The Nonprofits, airs in the 3 o'clock hour. And if you weren't familiar with these shows and you haven't been listening to them, then you might not also know about Secular Sexuality on Thursdays and Truth Wanted on Fridays. And you can find all of these as audio-only podcasts at tiny.cc/AEN podcast. AEN stands for Atheist Express Network. You can see it right there in the logo. That's your one-stop shop for all of the ACA productions. And it's a great place to get information on all those shows and be able to listen to those shows. And all of those shows exist and are done not because of me, not because of Jim, although we participate in them a little bit, but by these folks, the ACA crew, look at that. They're screening your calls now. They're working on audio. They're working on video. They're the ones that make these shows happen. It's incredibly good. And because there are all these shows, sometimes it's a little too much for everybody to keep up with all the shows every week. Not the solution for you. Here's what you might have missed.
And he goes on to say things like they're having drag queens come in and read to children.
Man, I wish that drag queens were getting invited to read to kids in schools.
There was one guy that said a female Bigfoot drug him up from the creek and had intercourse with him. Of course, my question is, how was it?
Please, this is Thursday. Dave Chappelle did a bit talking about how after 9/11 he turned on the news and there was a reporter that was like, we're going to go right now to talk to Ja Rule about his thoughts on this tragedy. And Chappelle's like, nobody gives a what Ja Rule thinks at a time like this.
This tin of beans is the almighty deity, and we need to worship this tin of beans because it will bring us prosperity and it will make us all fertile.
I do not care what your religion is. I do not care if you believe in a God. I do not care if you like green eggs and ham.
The subtitles were awesome.
I just want to say that the first time I watched that, when they sent the clip to me, I looked at that and I was like, what is that? Green eggs and why are there two pigs and why? Oh, green eggs and fucking ham. There we go. Exactly what it is.
Yeah, we have
Thank you to everybody
very
behind the
talented
scenes
people.
for knocking that out. And we got a lot of calls. I'm going to try and get to them one of these days. I'm going to warn you guys in advance. I don't know if Halloween's the best time to do it. At some point, I want to do an atheist experience where it is as rapid fire calls as possible. Now, thought in my head, it may not be the best thing to do. There may be people behind the scenes who don't agree with it. I'm not trying to say, hey, let's not have any long conversations. I love the long conversation. I love being able to get to the meat of stuff. But, man, maybe one day it would be good to just do like that. You got 1 minute to state your case, and we got 1 minute to move on and to respond and move.
Yeah.
But here we go. And in Arizona thinks I'm wrong about something about the God question, so let's sort it out.
It's not that you're wrong. I don't think that you're wrong. I think that you're asking the wrong question.
I'm not asking a question, okay? There's a proposition, and the proposition is some God exists. And you're either convinced that that proposition is true, or you are not convinced that proposition is true. And all I'm asking is, for the people who are convinced that the proposition is true, what is your reason?
I can give you my reason, but I want to clarify what I mean. So basically, you say, do you believe in God, yes or no? And then you say, why do you believe in God? Justify why you believe in God. I think you kind of have to approach it from a different angle.
No, you don't. Go ahead.
And I think the problem with approaching it that way is it becomes a binary yes or no question.
It is a binary question. It is absolutely a binary question. You are either convinced that a God exists, or you are not convinced that a God exists. What other option is there between I am convinced a God exists and I am not convinced a God exists? That one is a direct logical negation of the other. No. The reason you're not sure is because you don't understand. One is a direct logical negation of the other. There is no, for everything we could discuss, either A or not A. There are no other options. Everything is either A or not A.
Do you understand that?
Agree with that 100%. And this is where
Then you cannot possibly disagree, because what I describe is logically, philosophically, semantically identical, because either you are convinced a God exists, A, or you are not convinced a God exists. That's not A. Those are the only two options.
there are a lot of people that say it's impossible for me to make a decisive yes or no answer, and those people are called agnostics.
Yeah, no, sorry. You're not listening, Kevin, and you're not thinking. I didn't say that there needs to be a yes or no question on does God exist, because yes means you're convinced that God exists, and no means that you're convinced God doesn't exist. That's not at all what I said. I said you are either convinced that a God exists, or you are not convinced that a God exists. If you are not convinced that a God exists, that does not mean that you are convinced that God does not exist. In the same way that if you are not convinced that the defendant is guilty, that does not mean you are convinced of their innocence.
Believe God exists and let's take my case.
Well, no, Kevin. I just went through a detailed explanation of how this is in fact binary. Shut the fuck up. I just went through a detailed explanation of how this is in fact binary. And when we get to this part where you, under normal circumstances, would say, oh, I now understand how this is binary, you instead go on to say, I believe in God and want to say why. Did you fail how to have a basic conversation and acknowledge points?
Stated was correct. So let me take it a step back, because I can see that we're having an argument, we're not having a discussion. I really respect what you do, even though I disagree with you. I'm a theist, and I've been a theist for most of my life.
Did you just sit there and talk through that whole explanation? I'm waiting for you to acknowledge that, in fact, what I was saying was a binary issue was in fact binary.
Okay. It is binary, and I think I didn't present what I'm trying to say, because this is difficult to do, talking in front of people.
You're not talking in front of thousands of people. You're talking to me and Jim.
Okay, so let's have a conversation. Let's talk for each other out.
Oh my God, bro.
You're telling me what fucking language I can fucking use on my fucking show, and you learn how to have a conversation where you acknowledge a fucking point and stop trying to dodge. I'm going to give you one more chance to continue the discussion. Please have the discussion and stop being dishonest interlocutor by avoiding the fact that I mentioned. You absolutely are, and now you're focused on what language I use. So let's reset right now. I'm pushing a reset button. Hi, Kevin. Thank you for calling the Atheist Experience. I'm Matt. This is Jim.
Hey, Matt. How you doing?
You thought I was wrong about something, but since then we've now cleared that up. So what would you like to talk about now?
Okay. I believe that there are two types of truth. There is personal subjective truth, and there is external objective truth. And they are completely different things. And that
How do you prove subjective truth? How do you prove subjective truth is true?
There's no way to prove subjective truth.
Which means you also can't prove that it exists, which means you being convinced that there's subjective truth and external truth is already
I just wanted to hear a little bit more of this conversation. This has been an after work stream on a big Monday. I will be working on this project for the next week or so until I can wrap this up. Oh man, I feel really sleepy, yo. I was I keep saying this because I'm really about to do it, but I was invited to a artist retreat for, I think it was actually last week or the week before, no, last week sometime. A week-long artist retreat at this really nice maple syrup farm, or maple tree farm where they make syrup, and they got goats. But like I say, it's a really, really nice property, and they just have like groups of artists come out there and just like paint and do their own thing, not working together on any collaborative projects or anything. They just go out there and paint, and everybody has their own little studio and workshop set up, and some of them are outside, or some of them are in a barn, and some of them are in a house. And there was one setup that was like right down by a little pond they got on the property. And like I said, it was just nice. And so they invited me out there to do this artist retreat for a week. But you had to be vaccinated. You had to be fully vaccinated and have a negative COVID test, because some of the artists are like older people, and they got those morbidity cofactors and high risk and all that shit. So I get it. And so I didn't know that initially when I got invited. I'm like, hell yeah, I'll come do that. I want to come chill with the old head artists and paint and probably soak up a little bit of knowledge and wisdom from the old people. Yeah, what up? But like I say, later on when everything was getting finalized, they were like, oh, well, you have to be fully vaccinated if you want to attend. And so I just emailed them back and said, I appreciate the invitation, but I don't think I'll be getting vaccinated anytime soon, so I'm going to have to give up my spot for this artist retreat. And but then I thought to myself, why the fuck can't I just? Because I would have had to take time off work to do that, because it was for the entire week. And so I had already planned it out and everything, just use some vacation time to take a week off of work and go paint. And so since I'm not doing a retreat, I just kept thinking like, well, I can just still take a week off of work and just paint. So I don't know, I think maybe like next week I'll just take a week off. And so I'll have this weekend, all next week, and then all next weekend off, and I can just sit around and work on this. And I got some other paintings, and hopefully I'll have a photo shoot set up for later this week or this weekend, so I can put another installment to the reader series. So that's gonna be dope. So and I'm really just trying to get ready for this show in November. I want to have a couple of new pieces done for this show. So I'm really thinking I just may take like next week off and just do like a paint week here in the house, which is kind of better, because the location for the artist retreat is like 40 minutes away, and some people can. Oh yeah, for real. But the location is about 45 minutes away, and I would have to like drive there and back every day. They would have quarters for some of the artists who come from different states, but they can't like house everybody on the farm. And so I would have had to have all my paint supplies and art and everything set up there and come home in the evenings. And I kept thinking that would kind of be weird, because sometimes I just wake up like 2 o'clock in the morning and feel like painting, but my stuff would have to had stayed out there for a week. But anyway, it is what it is. But yeah, so stay tuned. Like I say, probably next week you'll see. Your English is way better than my French. Or Spanish. But yeah, so stay tuned, because I'll be doing a bunch of daytime streams coming up shortly. But anyway, appreciate everybody chilling in the studio with me on this afternoon stream, watching the progress on these paintings. Hope y'all have a good evening. Peace. Till next time.